Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Muller. We're glad you found us here on the 13 News Now app, and maybe you're watching from YouTube. We're happy to have you along as well. Each and every weekday morning, starting at 9 o'clock Eastern, we bring you a half an hour of information centered around today's top weather and climate, environmental, science, space headlines. We typically look at all of these different areas and bring it to you each and every weekday morning. Today, our topics include a wildfire update from across the U.S. This has been ongoing. We've talked so much about the drought and now wildfires that are starting to pop up. There have been a couple of areas we've really been watching, one in the southeast U.S., one in the western U.S., and we're specifically going to focus on that Everglades fire. We'll talk about the containment of that situation. I'll show you where the smoke is headed there, how close it is to Miami. And then we're also going to focus on another one out in Arizona. So we'll have those. And we're going to talk about having a safety plan as fires approach. Obviously, if you've got wildfires threatening your area, you want to get away and listen to evacuation orders, all of that. But what if fire surrounds your entire area and there's no clear escape route? Got some information on that, what you can do, some safer spaces that you may be able to access. In addition to that, we're going to talk about the midnight sun, the never setting sun, where it's up all night. That midnight sun season is beginning now for our northernmost city in America. We'll talk about that. The ski season is wrapping up. It already has for several resorts around the country, but out in Utah along the Wasatch Range, we'll talk about the ski season wrapping up there and what they've been seeing in this month. Some spring skiing in April, but it was kind of a rough ski season. And we're going to take you back out to Utah a little bit later in the show. Then we're going to talk about this being the 50th anniversary today, the 50th anniversary of them renaming or kind of revisiting the system of naming of tropical systems. And we're going to explain the history going back since we've been tracking these storms, how we've referred to tropical systems over the decades. It has changed, and the most recent change coming about 50 years ago today. So we'll talk about that. Heat building across the eastern U.S., and when you see the extended forecast, it is going to be a warm one for not only Hampton Roads, but for much of the eastern U.S. So these are the headlines, and we're going to start off by taking a look at the wildfires. You can see there's a whole bunch of little fires kind of scattered about across the country. That's what these different flames are representing. But right now, firefighters in South Florida are working to contain wildfires in Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Let's take a look at the flames burning through the Everglades. As of this morning, the largest fire has burned more than 11,000 acres. Right now, it is 60% contained, and Reed Binion reports.
So last night, sort of sleeping with one eye open?
Pretty much, yes.
A massive fire is burning in the Florida Everglades. The blaze, named the Max Road Fire, broke out on Sunday.
We could hear it crackling. That's how bad it was. I had to hose down my house. Everyone was hosing down all their trailers before the fire department came.
The area primed for fire as large parts of the state continue to experience severe and extreme levels of drought.
Very, very concerned coming out in the middle of the night just to make sure that it wasn't, coming towards our way.
Firefighters attacking the flames from the ground and the sky. In addition to firefighting efforts, authorities positioned police and fire rescue resources at the ready in communities close to the flames. Emergency officials said there was no imminent threat to the community. However, they did urge locals to monitor conditions in case that changes. Some residents preparing to make a quick exit if the flames get too close.
We're keeping an eye on things. We've already set aside some things in case we have to leave.
Others doing what little they can to prepare their properties for a worst-case scenario.
We're going to have to just keep watch, make sure that we do what we can to protect our house and pray that the wind stays to the west.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
All right, I want to talk to you about some of the smoke down in South Florida. And again, the Everglades fire, you can see it is largely west of Miami and coastal sections up through Fort Lauderdale. So we're not looking at some of that wafting back towards the coast necessarily right now. That's good news. Hopefully this fire will eventually continue to get more and more contained and eventually extinguished. But that has been a concern as there's been a lot of smoke out there. You can see some of the smoke expected to diminish here as as we go through the overnight and the evening, and then kind of blow back a little bit more towards the east as we get into the evening hours. That's the plan as the models are looking at the winds around those wildfires down there in the Everglades. In Arizona, a go evacuation status is in effect for some neighborhoods due to a large brush fire there. This is a look at the conditions near Wickenburg, where the Jones fire has burned around 100 acres. The Arizona Department of Transportation has closed Route 60 in both directions, and there is still no word for when it will reopen. The Red Cross has opened an emergency shelter for residents who were forced to leave their homes. Now, wildfires can be unpredictable. If there's ever one burning near your home, you should always have a safety plan in place. Leah Pizzetti explains.
A lot of people imagine that surviving a wildfire means running far, far away. Not always. Every wildland firefighter constantly looks for two things, and you can too. One is the escape route, usually a road out, but roads can and do get blocked. So firefighters also always look for their nearest safety zone. That's a big clearing with good distance from anything that will burn. People have survived some of the deadliest mega fires by riding them out in big parking lots. A green sports field or golf course can work too. Fires can be life or death. Escape is a good plan A. Learn to look for safety zones, and you'll also have a plan B.
Coming up next, midnight sun season has officially begun. We'll talk about which parts of the world will spend the next 3 months around the clock in daylight. Meanwhile, ski season's already closing. It's coming to an end for most resorts. We're going to hear from snowboarders in Utah enjoying one last run in the May snow. Welcome back to the weather desk. You can see in Hampton Roads we're enjoying a lot of sunshine, but we're going to turn our attention far to the north, all the way up into Alaska. You see kind of the northern edge of kind of the reach of our satellite images. That's why in northern Alaska, because of the angle from the satellite, we don't even get the clear satellite data up there. But I do want to take you a little farther to the north and talk about the midnight sun. The midnight sun season has officially begun now that we're into the summer months, and we've got the tilt of the Earth leaning towards the sun. Those direct rays are falling the farthest north over the coming weeks and months as we approach the summer solstice. And for the extreme north, the sun never fully sets. So this is the time now when communities north of the Arctic Circle get nonstop daylight in the summer while the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. Now, check this out. This is time-lapse from Sunday. It shows the sun setting on America's northernmost town for the last time until August 2nd. This is Utqiagvik, Alaska. Formerly, this was known as Barrow, but this is the name, Utqiagvik, and it's now going to see more than 80 straight days of light. And remember, it's the opposite in winter when the city gets weeks of darkness. The sun never sets. So cool to see that. And again, it's really the farthest north. That's as far north as you can go in the United States. Now we'll head back down to the lower 48, and I want to talk to you about a place near and dear to my heart. I spent 3 years before coming to Hampton Roads in the late 90s. When it was the mid 90s, I lived right down here south of Salt Lake City. I worked for KUTV and really loved Salt Lake because in addition to just a great, beautiful place to live, there was the world's, I'm convinced, some of the best skiing you'll find anywhere and the greatest snow on earth. We're going to talk about Brighton Ski Resort because the ski resort's now coming to a close after the winter season. Let's talk about this. Snowboarders here at Brighton are making the most of the last May snow after less than ideal conditions for the month or through the winter. Carolina Hassett reports.
It's the end of the meltdown at Brighton Ski Resort, and despite certain challenges with the lack of snowfall, Michael Harrington says the location of the resort worked in their favor this year.
We're lucky enough here at Brighton. We have snow. We can kind of push from wherever. We really made it work with our team that we have here.
But as skiers reflected on the season, it was definitely a mixed bag. Amiel Richter says he was just happy to ski this late in the season.
When it's sunny and I can just have park laps with the boys, that's what it's all about. When there's all that powder, there's the pressure. You got to get up at 5:30. You got to fight the crowds. You got to act like you had a good time while you're freezing your butt off.
Best friends Tiernan O'Sullivan and Matthew Manini came to Utah from Massachusetts just for the skiing. And even with the rough winter, O'Sullivan says it's the best season he's ever had.
Powder day, probably best day I've had back east, would be like a foot powder day, and I'm touching the bottom in here in ice. And that's just like, and I was stoked, I was juiced. But then you come out here, like, we had a 48-inch day up at Snowbird, and like that was incredible.
However, other skiers felt the season was rough.
Slushy?
Yeah, a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Jumping over some rocks and mud and dealing with all the conditions.
There was a good couple weeks in December, right around Christmas time, where it was like decent, and then right after that I feel like it was ice for weeks and weeks and weeks.
But if it's one thing everyone could agree on, it's that the Brighton community made the most of it.
People who came up were people who really wanted to be here, because people who don't really care aren't going to come up when it's icy and not very good.
Only Brighton, they can find this
Yes,
community.
my heart belongs to Brighton.
And while skiers are praying for more snow next year, O'Sullivan will be back, no matter what the conditions are.
I'm re-signing that lease. If this was the worst year, next year is going to blow my mind.
Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, it will blow his mind. So again, I'm a little more tied to this one. When this story came across from our producer, I was like so excited. This is the resort, Brighton. Those very slopes, I saw Majestic, seeing the lifts out there. That's where I learned to ski. I think it was about 30 years or so ago. Anyway, it was a while ago. Brighton, Solitude, Alta, Snowbird. Beautiful, beautiful skiing out there. It's not too far from Park City and Deer Valley, but this is up Big Cottonwood Canyon, Brighton is, and Alta up the top of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Just gorgeous country, and if you are a skier and you haven't yet been out there, you need to work that out in your future. You will love it. All right, we're going to take another quick break. On this day, nearly 50 years ago, forecasters changed the way they decided how to name storms like hurricanes. We'll explain after the break. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. Look at the ocean front in Virginia Beach. How beautiful. This is a Thompson Creek Window Company sky view from beach quarters. We're looking back at the First Street Jetty. There are a few surfers out there trying to catch a wave or two. Not a lot of action right now. The winds have generally been fairly light and coming in from the north. That is not a very favorable wind direction for surfing here at the ocean front. Typically, we see a southwest wind kind of cleaning up the wave faces, and we get tons of surfers out there. Out on the water, you can see the water temperature right now in the Atlantic, 57, so still cool. You definitely would want a spring suit if you're going out and surfing, although the water temperatures in the bay now in the lower 60s. And again, winds will be from the north shifting to the east about 5 to 10 knots on the bay and the ocean, occasionally gusting to 15 knots. Not a real big deal. I bring up the water temperatures because yesterday, you remember we talked about the sea surface temperatures starting to come up, and you know, with the rising sea surface temperatures, you'll probably start thinking about the Atlantic hurricane season. It's not too far away, less than 3 weeks away, and we're going to talk about the naming of the storms, and you'll notice this list here for 2026. We have Arthur, then Bertha, then Cristobal, then Dolly, then Eduard, Faye, Gonzalo, okay? If you look at this and at a casual glance, you go, okay, that's just a list of names. Well, it is, but if you really look carefully, you'll notice boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And the names have some kind of international flair, some of them. It's not all just Americanized names like when the Hurricane Center started to name these. So there have been some changes over the year. Did you know it was on this day in 1978 that it was announced officially the list of hurricane names would also include male names? Since 1953, the U.S. government had used only women's names to name the storms. The change was officially reflected starting in 1979 when names like Bob and David and Frederick were added to the list. Meteorologist Evan Stewart has more on the history of storm names.
Years, the National Weather Service has named tropical systems to reduce confusion when two or more storms occur at the same time. But naming hurricanes dates back hundreds of years. In the West Indies, storms were named after the saint's day on which they occurred. Other storms were named for the areas they hit. Of course, the names were given after the fact. The United States Weather Bureau started naming hurricanes in 1950 using the phonetic alphabet, Abel, Baker, Charlie, and so forth. In 1953, the practice of using women's names began, starting with Tropical Storm Alice. In the 1970s, after years of pressure, the National Weather Service stopped using only female names. In 1979, both male and female names were included in the list. Today, the World Meteorological Organization maintains a rotating set of 6 lists using English, Spanish, and French names, since those are languages spoken in the Atlantic Hurricane Basin.
So again, you've got more variety, and it's not just female names, it's male, female, alternating each storm. Now, typically in a hurricane season, we average about 14 named systems. That's tropical storms, some of those, of course, turning into hurricanes if they get strong enough. Looking at this list, our 14th name on the list is Nana. Notice Marco, that's number 13, and I bring that up because this year, Colorado State University is calling for 13 named storms. That's how many we had last year. Again, the average is 14. Of those, CSU expects 6 hurricanes and 2 major hurricanes. So their forecast calling for slightly below average activity, and that ties in to the fact that we're expecting a developing strong, potentially a super El Nino. In El Nino years, we tend to see Atlantic activity suppressed. A lot of times the storms try to form and they get blown apart. We will, of course, keep you updated with whatever happens over the coming season. I can tell you right now, as we look across the basin, it's quiet in the Gulf, quiet across the Caribbean and the Atlantic and main development region here, the MDR. This area is also quiet as well. There are some showers and storms moving in the northeast part of the Gulf. We'll talk more about that coming up. We're going to take a quick break, and coming up in 2 minutes, I'm going to have your Tuesday forecast for Hampton Roads. We'll break down the severe weather threat, not a hurricane threat, but severe weather threat for parts of the country, and we'll talk about a heat wave. Good morning. Welcome back. We're taking a look now at what's happening nationally. I mentioned some non-tropical development, a storm system producing some rain in the southeast. I want to take you up to the north central U.S., and there's one area that has a flood advisory in place. But when you take a look at this, this is so sparsely populated, this area under the advisory. Would you believe around Fall Lake, this is for the counties of Cook, Lake, and St. Louis counties. With this flood advisory, there's only 616 people up here. That's a pretty large area for so few people actually being under that advisory. I thought that was really interesting. As we turn our attention down to the south, we do have some heavier pockets of rain moving into Florida. You can see some heavier activity approaching Lake City, Fort White, eventually Gainesville. You could see some heavier rains over towards Jacksonville as well. And then moving south of Pensacola, we've got this heavy rain in the northern Gulf as well. Panama City, very wet today. Now, as far as the severe weather outlooks go, we do have a chance for some severe weather back across the upper Midwest through Missouri, back over Florida as well. Winds the primary concern. Some hail also a potential in both locations. The tornadic threat is really concentrated just here on the ocean side of Florida. You can see from around West Palm up through Fort Pierce, Melbourne, and up through Daytona. That does include Orlando. It's not a great risk, but folks down there with the wet weather coming in will want to pay close attention. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Back in West Virginia, up into western parts of Pennsylvania, extreme western Virginia, and then back out across Montana, Idaho, and northern Utah. There's a severe weather threat tomorrow. Not really looking at tornadoes in either place, just some wind here in West Virginia, and then potential for wind and hail back out to the west. By Thursday, a chance for storms across central Kansas. For us here, a lot of sunshine, no doubt about that. We've got beautiful weather, highs today getting up into the low 70s. It'll be a little cooler right at the beaches, but a gorgeous day, plenty of sunshine. Mainly clear tonight. Winds coming up from the south will push temperatures up a bit tomorrow. As you can see, some wet weather approaches, and I think we will see some showers overnight Wednesday night, late into early Thursday. By Thursday morning, those showers move out, and then we see improvements coming later on Thursday. Want to let you know, tree pollen and grass pollen high once again. Yesterday, the rain knocked it down, or kind of the dampness knocked it down a little bit. Now the sun's up. Pollen's cranking back up. Temperatures are in the 50s for most, but it is going to warm up. Highs today near 71, mostly sunny, very pleasant. 52 the low tonight, mainly clear. And then tomorrow we'll be back around 79, mostly sunny. These highs back above average tomorrow. After that, we're going to see temps in the mid 70s. Again, those showers exit very early on Thursday. Temperatures warming Friday into Saturday and Sunday. Look at that. Temperatures close to 90 degrees. I just want to give you a heads up. Look at this, above normal temperatures running out through the 26th of May. It is going to be a hot stretch. As I mentioned, we've had our ups and downs, but it looks like some real heat is going to build across the region this weekend and into the following week. Remember, you can always get the latest news, traffic, and weather on the go with the 13 News Now mobile app. Download that. It's free and available wherever you get your apps. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We'll see you next time.